Bills Mafia, what's going on? Happy August 15th, Friday edition of First and Five. I am your host, Dave Myers, owner and founder of Built in Buffalo. I got a special guest for me today, and I believe that we're going to make this a Friday thing with my guy, Papa Ronnie Eastham. Ronnie, it's Friday. What's going on, man? How you feeling about Bills playing some preseason football in a couple days?
I'm pretty excited about it. And listen, I have been waiting for this moment all summer long. I'm so excited to get back on the podcast stream wave. That's what I'm going to call it. And yeah, we're full into training camp preseason, and I am super excited for this season.
Yeah, we've been a little bit of behind the curtain stuff. Me and Ronnie have been talking about this for a long time. And then obviously we were waiting for the right time. Season's here, a little over about 3.5 weeks. So we've been waiting. It's the right time. Our schedules are finally lining up to where we can do this every Friday. So this is going to be a Friday thing. We're going to touch on some hot topics. Typically, once the season rolls around, we're probably going to touch on a kind of like a pregame, give you our previews and predictions for the upcoming games for the Bills. As you guys saw by the thumbnail today, I wanted to talk about the bubble wide receivers, the guys that could possibly push the Bills to keep 6 this year. I'm not sure what their thinking is. Obviously, once more preseason happens, more of practice happens, we get down to that 53-man roster structuring, which me and Ronnie can probably do. In a few weeks, we could probably put together our rosters, kind of see what that looks like. But everybody wants to talk about the wide receiver position, especially after this past week's preseason game against the Giants. I feel like Tyrell Shavers had a good game. I feel like Laviska Shenault had a good game. KJ Hamler had that big touchdown. So as you can see on the screen, I got the 3 guys listed there, Shavers, Shenault, and Hamler. The biggest question is, are the Bills going to repeat what they did last year and keep 5 receivers on the roster? Are they going to push it for 6 based off of what guys can do in special teams and things like that? So first impression, let's talk about Tyrell Shavers first, Ronnie. What's your impression on Tyrell Shavers, guy who's been on the roster last year, undrafted guy, a guy who was on the team the entire season, had that nice big catch in the game against the Jets last year. He took that bubble screen to the house. So what's your impressions on Tyrell Shavers based off of last year and then what you saw out of the week 1 preseason game against the Giants?
Yeah, I think currently Tyrell Shavers has the longest career average per reception in NFL history right now. 1
69
catch,
yards.
69 yards, touchdown. Yeah, I've been a big Shavers fan. I loved him last season. Back in May, we're just talking about a 53, way too early 53-man projection, but I did have him making it this year. I'm a big fan of his, and I just think that, was he 6'4", 6'5", good speed for somebody his size too. I think he's a guy that the Bills really could use on the offense, especially down in the red zone. Outside of Coleman, the rest of these guys are 6 foot and under, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at him, he doesn't look, like a Keon Coleman. He doesn't look like a Joshua Palmer. He doesn't look like a big-bodied guy who you expect to go make plays, but it seems like every offseason he's making plays, and he's pushing the Bills to contemplate, does this guy deserve a spot? He's definitely going to be on the practice squad. I don't know if he would get picked up by anybody, if anybody would take a shot at him. To me, it's the ability to adapt, and it's his ability to see what he can do on special teams. I saw a lot of tweets come out today on X about him playing the gunner position. So if that's something that he's also doing now, that's just add more tools to the tool belt that could put him in a spot to push guys. Because when we talk about the bubble wide receivers, we have to remember the wide receivers aren't just fighting amongst themselves to make the roster. They're fighting against that 5th safety or a 10th defensive lineman or an extra linebacker, because all of those guys are going to be looked at first as what can they contribute on special teams. Is it something where they can be gunners? Is it something that they can be on the return team itself as far as blocking schemes and things like that? And then the return aspect of it as well as, like the next guy we're going to talk about with Laviska Shenault. He's a guy that looked good in the kick return game on Saturday against the Giants. He actually had a punt return. He was in there on that 2-point conversion. He was playing gunner, which I didn't really know that was part of his game. So let's talk about Laviska Shenault. I loved him during the whole draft process a few years back. I thought that he was going to be an absolute stud. For whatever reason, injuries happened, some things I think scheme wise he just didn't work out. So what's your thoughts on Laviska Shenault after a really good showing in Saturday's game against the Giants?
Maybe this is a little PTSD on my part. I had him on my fantasy football team after his rookie year because I thought he was going to be something. And yeah, like you said, the injuries and whatnot kind of derailed all of that. But this signing to me, I hate to say this, but I kind of go back to last season when the Bills brought in Chase Claypool. To me, it was a lot of the same thing. And not even Claypool, but also with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. There's a reason why these guys can't stick to a team, and they keep going bouncing around from team to team to team. I'm not a big Shenault fan. I was actually impressed and somewhat surprised at how much they used him and at the various ways that they used him last week. So maybe he'll surprise me. It can be kind of that do everything guy. But I'm not a big fan of his, honestly. But we'll see what the rest of the preseason go. I'm not against changing my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's going to be hard because the Bills, I think, are going to keep 5. Everybody's saying that they're going to keep 6 and Shavers is a lock and stuff like that. I just feel like the way the DNA of the Bills and how McDermott wants to roster the team defensively, I feel like you're going to need extra help in the secondary. You're going to need an extra linebacker because we have to be constantly worried about injuries. I feel like the Bills every year, once they hit that home stretch, there's always times when, man, I really wish we had, X player starting, opposite of Christian Benford, or I wish we had Christian Benford, or I wish we had Matt Milano, or somebody playing opposite of, Terrell Bernard or something like that. It just seems like with the safeties we have, there's always going to be, well, we need to keep an extra safety, just because McDermott likes to have deep rosters because of how aggressive this team plays. And we need to have those guys on the back end of the season when it counts. So last one, KJ Hamler, he's obviously the Hard Knocks, darling. Everybody loves him riding his scooter around Hard Knocks.
That's been fun.
Yeah. Had a big play against the Giants, nice 39-yard pass. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that everybody in the locker room seems to love him. The fans seems to adore him. He's a guy too that just after he was drafted, just couldn't seem to stay healthy. Kind of bounced around. The Bills signed him to a futures deal before last season, before the 23 season. And then he was here on the practice squad last year. Now he's back again. What's your thoughts on KJ Hamler?
I like the skill set as far as the speed. But again, it kind of goes back to I trust McDermott and this coaching staff to make the right choices. And if they don't feel like he's going to be able to contribute in any meaningful way, I don't have a problem with him not making the team. But I do really like the speed. And that's one thing that this team, it seems like every single offseason we're talking about that is a lack of speed. As far as the Hard Knocks thing, I love them. I that's one of my favorite things about watching the Hard Knocks is seeing some of these guys' personalities that we don't normally get to see. So that's been pretty neat. But I don't think he makes it personally again. But if he can get on there and they can use him, I'd almost say if he makes a team, it's going to be kind of in that Isaiah McKenzie type role, the gadget play.
So what's you brought up Hard Knocks and I brought it up too. It wasn't on our show notes, but what's your thoughts on Hard Knocks? Is it boring? Is that okay? Like, can you tell that the Bills have a lot of creative control? Because I feel like they touched on Joe Andreessen, but then they kind of lingered on Joe Andreessen for like a while. And I feel like that was a nice story last year. And then the James Cook thing, they kind of touched, which they'll probably pick up again this coming episode. But I feel like they didn't, unless it's coming, they didn't really touch on the Ray Davis story, which I felt would have pulled on a lot of heartstrings. Like his story is incredible. They talked about him briefly about the draft process and things like that. And then obviously him kicking the extra point Saturday, but I didn't get I wasn't wowed, I guess, because we probably see all this stuff on X all the time, like all the stuff in practice. Like they're giving us a little bit of a glimpse of the stuff in the dorm rooms and a little behind the scenes stuff with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. But I feel like I don't know if I expected more. Maybe I put too much emphasis on just wanting all the access. So what's your take on Hard Knocks? Are you, is it entertaining for you, or are you think it's okay? Like, can you tell that the Bills have creative controlled the heck out of this thing? Like, what's your thoughts?
I do wonder how much control they've had in what gets shown. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I think it was on X. I saw somebody posted the latest Snickers commercial with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And it just made me kind of realize again that this team is so far from where they were during the drought years that anything that they can get now as far as the publicity and the recognition, I'm all for it and I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not a big drama guy. I don't want all the drama. So to me, watching the Hard Knocks, I'm enjoying it. It's entertaining. I think one of my favorite things that I've seen so far is watching seeing how Josh Allen has developed as a leader. Like he's like a second coach or another coach on the field now.
Yeah.
And that compared to where he was back in 2018, his rookie season, that's been pretty fun to watch. I don't need all the drama to be entertained. I'm the same way with just regular TV shows and movies. I hear all these critically acclaimed this and that, and Rotten Tomatoes said that. Like, if I'm entertained, I don't care. It's good enough for me.
Yeah, I've the stuff that I've seen from Josh, especially like, and the clip has made it around social media where he's holding, the iPad and he's talking about, I need you here and I need this and I really need you to do that. Like, that is stuff that I don't know if that's just a Hard Knocks thing, like, because they were there, or if we just haven't seen that before. But it's really nice to see, especially coming off of what we were told that was going to happen last season. That because of all of the leadership and all of the captains that they lost off that roster when they made all those cap casualties and they went younger and went with the youth movement. Like, it's just really nice to see that he's embraced that leadership role. Not that we didn't already think that he was doing that, but it's nice to actually be able to see it and see what he's actually saying and kind of digest, what's being said and how it's coming across. Because we always hear on social media about how great he is in the locker room, out in the community. The clip when he was at St. John Fisher signing autographs and he took his hat off to, greet all of the active service people. I thought that was great. And he remembers all the kids' names from the charities and the hospitals he's visited and stuff like that. So it's really great to see that we have a guy that is Buffalo. He just is an ambassador for the city, an ambassador for the team. And it's nice to know that it's being put front and center. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine last night who happens, I live out on the West Coast in California. So I'm literally probably 75 minutes from where the 49ers play. So a lot of my wife's friends who she grew up in California, a lot of her friends are 49ers fans. So obviously we constantly talk about Josh Allen and Brock Purdy and 49ers and Bills. And a friend of mine said, and he can't stand Josh Allen because obviously what he did last year and doesn't help, but against the 49ers, but he said, is Josh Allen the face of the NFL? And I pondered that question for a while because we're typically used to seeing like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and stuff like that because they've won Super Bowls and things like that. So what's your opinion? Do you think, and again, I'm going off the cuff here, this wasn't on our show notes, is Josh Allen, is he already there? Is he becoming the face of the NFL?
It's tough to say definitively.
It's crazy, right?
We follow the team, so we are naturally going to see his face front and center all the time.
Yeah.
If we follow the Chiefs or if we follow insert whoever, we would probably see that person a lot, right? So I don't know if that's necessarily the case as far as the NFL as a whole goes. I do know, and I think this could be part of maybe why the NFL wants to push him out there. He's a polarizing player because, and this goes all the way back to his draft year. Coming into the draft, he was not this, but he can do this, but he can do that. He was such a polarizing player even back then. That kind of player creates drama. It creates interest. And as much as I don't like drama, that is the thing that pushes views. Let's be honest. People love that kind of stuff, and that's what they want to talk about. And especially not a lot of the negative stuff, which, like we were talking about the other day in text, I won't name the radio station here, but That's what they push. They want the negative narrative. And not to say that's what people are doing with Allen, but just having his face out there, there's going to be people that are going to gravitate to him as a person, as a player, and then there's going to be the other side of that that's going to be like, oh well, he can't beat Patrick Mahomes, he can't do this, he can't, and it's still, which blows my mind, still a conversation.
Yeah, I don't know why there's a narrative about Josh Allen. There's more times than not where I see, coming across X where it's fans of other teams that are saying, how could you not love Josh Allen? How could you not? And it's not even the stuff from Hard Knocks. It's just seeing the things that are shared from the stuff he does with fans and interacting with players and how he talks to everyone, not just teammates, but how he talks to everyone. So, all right, so let's get back on the wide receiver train. So we talked about the three guys, and then I'll come back. I'll circle back to the wide receiver roster as a whole, and we'll kind of put a bow on all this. But let's talk about Curtis Samuel, because this morning Sean McDermott had a press conference, and he brought up Curtis Samuel and the lack of availability of Curtis Samuel. Now, I've always said, and a lot of people say, the best ability that you can have is your availability, right? Yep. So we know what happened last year. I think a lot of fans this past offseason said, well, man, just can't wait for Curtis Samuel to be healthy, because look what he was doing towards the end of the year. He was making plays, scored that big touchdown against the Broncos in the postseason. That he had that touchdown against the Chiefs. Like, everybody was just waiting. And then here we go again. And I was extremely high on Curtis Samuel. I'll admit it. I was extremely high on him when they signed him last year. He was one of the guys that I wanted them to target and sign for two factors. Number one, he played with Joe Brady. So knowing that this was going to be Joe Brady's first season last year as the full-time, offensive coordinator, because obviously the year before was the half the season after they got rid of Ken Dorsey. But I was excited because they were reunited, and he had his best career season when he was with Joe Brady in Carolina. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Second of all, I know what the guy offers as a gadget player that I thought would be a step up from Isaiah McKenzie, because the NFL is leading more towards those RPOs, more towards those handing the ball off to wide receivers in the backfield. He can play the slot. He can line up outside. He has speed, something that I thought the Bills desperately needed was speed last year. So I was excited. So obviously the nagging injury, I feel like he was injured a lot more than the Bills let on last year. I feel like he showed up on the injury report, but he was practicing, so nobody really made a big deal about it. But here we go again this offseason, misses a ton of training camp. Practice today, looked like he was running routes, making some catches, things like that. Sean McDermott came out and said that he's concerned. Like the clock is ticking, like tick-tock, like we're running out of time to get the reps back in with the offense. The season's right around the corner. We're less than a month away. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction and we can have him healthy. I see a lot of fans online saying, why don't we just cut ties with him? Why don't we just cut him, cut our losses? It was a bad contract. Let's move on. We have other guys in the hopper, some of the guys we talked about. So what's your take on Curtis Samuel? I know you did some digging on the contract, what it looks like, things like that. So what's your take on Curtis Samuel?
Well, first of all, yeah, I'm with you as far as last season goes. When they brought him in, I was pretty excited about it. I think he had like a sub 4.3 40 or something like that. Fast. Extremely fast. I was a little surprised. His career average is only like around 10 or 11 yards per reception. So you kind of would expect somebody with his speed to have a little more than that. But still, as a gadget player, like you're saying, a leveled up version of Isaiah McKenzie, I was also excited about it. Then the nagging injuries continued to be a thing. Looking at his contract, though, and you brought this up on X earlier too, the dead money that would occur if they did just simply release him is pretty significant. It's spread out over a couple of years. If they released him, it'd be $8.6 million this year and $3.45 next year. And if they wait until next year to release him, those numbers obviously drop significantly. But one thing that let me rephrase that. I don't think it would happen, but one avenue, one out that they would have is if they could trade him, because that changes the numbers a lot. If they traded him, the dead cap this year would only be $1.7 million. And of course, they would still have some dead in 2026, which is the same 3.45. but they would save over $7.3 million this year if they could trade him. Like I said, I don't know that that's feasible. I don't know if there's any teams out there that would be willing to do that. But obviously, I know there's some teams out there that are receiver needy, even more so than what the perception is with the Bills. But that could be a potential out for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know early on into the offseason, a lot of Bills fans were talking about, well, what do you think we can get for a Curtis Samuel? I think it doesn't really matter what you get in return as long as it's a decent draft pick, some draft capital. What you're looking for is the cap relief. Because if we're talking about the same Curtis Samuel that we got last year, where he's on the injury report every week, he's getting 1 to 2 targets a week, he's a game day inactive, whatever it is, then this contract looks really bad. And again, I don't like to throw shade at Brandon Beane. I think he's done a terrific job constructing this roster. Obviously, he went out and a lot of people were on him about the James Cook deal, and they got that done. But I think the way he's constructed this roster is exactly what he said he was going to do back in 2017. He's going to draft, develop, and re-sign and sprinkle in veteran free agents. So this deal, looking back on it, if something were to happen where he's not healthy and he can't get on the field and the Bills can't find a trade partner, I think this is one of those deals that we're going to look at like, man, this is not one of Brandon Beane's better days. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully things are trending in the right direction. Hopefully he can be healthy, because a lot of people forget what Joe Brady said last year. He's like, sign me up for a whole team of Curtis Samuels. So we already know what Joe Brady thinks and how he feels about being able to utilize 100% healthy Curtis Samuel. I think it opens up the offense a ton. So with that being said, a lot of people also were talking about Elijah Moore, especially after the preseason game. We didn't see him get a lot of reps. The one thing that stood out to me was the play where Elijah Moore, I believe it was 3rd and 10. Elijah Moore runs across the middle. He's wide open, and Mitch Trubisky checks down Dalton Kincaid, 6-yard pass play, the Bills punt, whatever. Elijah Moore was gone. That was a 70-yard touchdown with his speed. Now, ifs and what ifs and stuff like that. But today, we're seeing a lot of stuff coming out saying that he had a really good day with Josh today. So what's your take on Elijah Moore? Because I think a lot of people are on a couple, they lean one way or the other. Either, he was brought in really late into the process of free agency. He was kind of an afterthought to see what the Bills would do in the draft. A lot of people feel like Brandon Beane was just trying to appease the masses by signing him because of the whole fallout of the draft and not going heavy, only signing, Joshua Palmer, stuff like that. So he had a good day today. I feel like, personally, I feel like this is a guy that can do some things. He's arguably had horrible quarterback play his entire career. He had a couple good games with Jameis Winston. So what's your take on Elijah Moore? You think that he's got a shot? You think that a lot of Bills fans are just saying, well, he's never really played with a good quarterback? Is that overblown? What's your thoughts overall?
I definitely think that there's something to that aspect of it. And it's kind of, if you want to draw this parallel, it's a little scary how similar he and Samuel are as far as their height. They're both, I believe, 6 foot. The last time I looked, they were separated by a couple of pounds in weight. Neither one of them has ever had a great quarterback to play for. Their yards per reception was very, very close to the same as well. They were very, very similar players, both stature-wise and statistically in the past. I do think Elijah Moore is more talented overall than Samuel. And I think if he can stay healthy and get on that field, I would love to see him with Josh Allen and not Trubisky. Nothing against Trubisky. I'm probably more of a Trubisky fan than most people. I get it. He likes to check down and all that. But I want to see him on the field with Allen in an actual game. And I do hope that Allen plays a little bit this weekend. But I'm excited for really this whole offense, the wide receiver room altogether. I think the ceiling is pretty high for this group. Unfortunately, I think the floor is kind of low too, but we'll see. I do like Moore in this offense. I think he can have a really good season.
All right. So I really like Elijah Moore. Like, I was pounding the table that he should have been one of the first guys that was signed. I wasn't like the cover one guys that were all over Joshua Palmer because of his separation and digging super deep into film and stuff like that. I thought he was a good addition. As far as if you look at the advanced analytics of Joshua Palmer, like, he does get open. Like, and that's what we needed last year. That's why the Bills tried to go get Amari Cooper, because we needed guys that can get downfield and get open. It's nothing flashy from, I'm going to let fans know right now, from Joshua Palmer, it is nothing flashy. You're not going to be blown away by stuff, but you're going to be pleasantly pleased with the results. I feel like that's one thing. He's a very consistent guy. He has a very low drop percentage. He's just going to make plays. So overall, I think, is it possible that the Bills can keep 6 wide receivers? I think it is extremely possible. Now, who that 6th guy is, I'm not in the building at One Bills Drive. I don't know how McDermott and Bean look at these guys and put them side by side and evaluate. If I had to think of the 3 that we mentioned, the bubble guys, I think the odd man out early is KJ Hamler. I think the Bills know what he is. They saw it last year. I think if there was going to be a year he was going to make this team, it was last year. I think that was probably his best shot. The Bills brought in Laviska Shenault to compete with Tyrell Shavers and KJ Hamler. So I think it's those 2 guys. I think it's Shavers and Shenault. I think that those are the 2 guys. I don't know if they look at what they do in practice. I don't know if they look at and value more of what they do in an actual game setting. Both guys performed in the game on Saturday. That's all I can tell you. We don't get to see everything in practice. So I think it's possible if one of these guys has, puts his stamp on something as far as special teams. And I give that to Shenault because of the special teams aspect of what he can do. And I know you're not a fan, but I know what McDermott loves. He loves the versatility of special teams. He loves having those guys. That's why we had Tyler Matakevich for so long and Saran Neal and those guys, because that's what they did. Andre Roberts, that's all he did was do kickoffs and punts. So do you think they can keep 6? Is it possible? And then we'll kind of move on to, what we want to talk about, expectations for Sunday and stuff like that. Is it possible that they keep 6?
I do think they keep 6. And I kind of want to touch base really. I was thinking about this while you were talking, bringing up the dead cap situation with Curtis Samuel. We heard last summer, there's no way the Bills are going to trade Stephon Diggs. The cap hits $32 million. That's not going to happen. One of the things that I think that for me, watching Brandon Beane and the way he operates in this team in general, they don't care. If it's beneficial for the team overall in the roster, they're going to do what they need to do. So I don't know necessarily that Samuel's, 12-ish million cap hit or dead cap hit is that big of a determining factor in whether or not they choose to move on from him or not. If he can't get on the field, then does it really matter how much dead money there is? You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
What do you do? At least if he's gone, you can take that roster spot with somebody like Tyrell Shavers. And the reason why I like Shavers over somebody like Shenault, we know what Shenault is. He's been around in the league long enough now. We know who he is, and what we saw Saturday is probably what you're going to get. With Tyrell Shavers, there's this potential ceiling there. And kind of, if you think back to Stevie Johnson, he was kind of the same thing. We kept hearing about his name throughout the off seasons and training camps and preseasons. Finally, I think his 3rd year, they finally give him a chance. That's kind of where I see Tyrell Shavers. I'm not saying Shavers is going to be the next Stevie Johnson, but just that kind of trajectory. Let's see what he can do. Maybe he could become a really good outside receiver for this team and contribute this year, as opposed to just being a special teams guy.
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't, like you said, we don't know Tyrell Shavers' ceiling. I feel like you said, we know what Shenault can do. And with the big emphasis on kickoffs this year, are we going to have Brandon Codrington do it where he's just taking up a roster spot? He doesn't play corner. Apparently today I saw some reports that he was playing the gunner position on special teams. So he was doing both sides of the special teams work, but they've also had a plethora of guys returning kicks and punts in practice. I don't know if they're just trying to go through the motions and see.
I think they're still looking.
Yeah. So that tells me that a couple things. Either they're not sold on Codrington, which he's still young. He's on a really inexpensive deal. They're not sold yet on Chenault because remember, Ray Davis can also return, or Ty Johnson can also return kicks too. So, and he did it last year because you don't want Khalil Shakir returning punts. You just don't. You want it maybe against if it's a game where you're trying to seal a win that wins you the division, or if it's a punt against the Ravens in the divisional game, and you need someone that is just going to make a catch and they're not going to fumble or the Micah Hyde effect, right? They're not going to do anything stupid. You can rely on them just catch the ball, get out of bounds, or down it or whatever. So it's going to be super intriguing to see how McDermott and Bean kind of evaluate these guys going forward, because I don't know outside of those guys for kicks and punts who they have on the roster. Again, we haven't seen all of practice. We don't know if there's somebody that's returning punts that we haven't heard or returning kicks that we haven't heard about. So because the new kickoffs this year, I think, are going to be really interesting. Teams are going to have big explosive plays on kickoffs, and then that's twofold for the Bills, right? You're going to want to have a guy that can do the kickoff return part of it, but you're also going to make sure you roster your team with gunners that are available to get down there and make tackles and things like that. So, all right, the Bills are in Chicago, had a joint practice today. From all accounts, went fairly well. I think there was only one minor skirmish. I've seen a lot of reports saying that Keon looked really good today, so that's really nice to see. But as far as Sunday, and we'll talk about the starters in a minute, like, what are you looking for out of the Bills? It's preseason. What are you looking for out of this game come Sunday? Like, what do you want to take away from this game? Like, what's the meat and potatoes for you for Sunday?
I want to see Bishop and Rapp on the field together. We've heard the reports that they spent time this offseason together working on communication and whatnot. I really want to see those two on the field. And it did, I believe from the reports today, they were, as McDermott said, limited. But I've also heard that they didn't look limited. Like, they look like they're ready to go full bore. So that's good. And the secondary really as a whole, I mean, even with Tre'Davious White, I mean, all of the reports coming out from training camp 1-9, he's been doing really well and playing good. I don't want to say he's back to his former self, because that's asking an awful lot of somebody who's been through what he's been through. But I want to see the secondary start to come together. I want to see good communication on the field together. And so that's an important piece of this. The other thing, the receivers, I want to see who does what on that field. And I do hope that Allen gets on there, because I think that's the way you're going to get the best idea of what these guys can do. Because, like you said, Elijah Moore had a huge play, and we'd all be talking differently about Moore today had he thrown that ball to Moore and they scored on it, right? It'd be a completely different narrative right now. Everybody like, oh my gosh, Elijah Moore, he's got to be the number one receiver. Bills Mafia tends to overreact to a lot of things, especially in the preseason. But so those are probably the biggest things. And also the other thing, I keep bringing this up every single year, every single offseason. The Bills have got to figure out their front four. They've got to figure out how to get dominant in the trenches on the defensive side. That is the key to beating the Chiefs. That is the key to beating just about any team in the playoffs. You've got to be able to control the line of scrimmage on the defensive side and get pressure on the quarterbacks. So I want to see a little bit of that. I did hear Greg Rousseau look good today as well, and also Joey Bosa. A couple of reports came out. He had a couple of sacks. So hopefully these guys are starting to get their wings underneath them and can hit the ground running come September.
Yeah, I think the young guys need to play a good bit on Sunday. We're talking about TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, Deion Walker. I think those guys need a lot of playing time. I mean, you got to get used to the rigors of a full NFL season. I understand they want to get different looks and different things, and McDermott and Babich aren't going to show and play all their cards. They're just not going to do that in preseason. But to your point, I want to see, like I said it last week, I said, everybody overreacting to Elijah Moore not getting targets, everybody overreacting to, who was throwing passes to who and who was catching passes. Like, it doesn't matter. I want to see Josh Allen build chemistry with Joshua Palmer. We already know he has chemistry with Shakir. I want to see him build, a rapport with Elijah Moore. I want to see Dalton Kincaid. They need to start building back the trust they had 2 years ago, where he set the Bills' tight end franchise record for receptions in a season. So that's the things I want to see. Obviously on the back end, I want of the defense, I want to see Cole Bishop. I want to see him play. I don't want it to be one series. I want to see him out there active on the field. I want to know that he can actually play meaningful snaps. Obviously, it's preseason. I'm not going to go crazy and overreact to everything. But as McDermott said about Cole Bishop, like, we're getting close here. Like, we're running out of time before it's September 7th and the Bills are playing the Ravens on Sunday night. So let me ask you this, and then we'll kind of end it on this topic. How do you feel, and what's your assessment? Like, what's your thoughts on a perfect scenario for starters playing on Sunday? What's your thoughts there?
I like to get the starters in the game. I think they need that a little bit of time. And I know Josh Allen going in the 8th season, you probably say he doesn't need practice, he doesn't need preseason. But like you said a while ago, when you've got some new weapons on the offensive side, I think you do need that, because you can only simulate so much in practice, right? You've got to have that real game scenario, practice a few things, maybe some fourth down, go for it attempts, whatever the case may be. I think you do need that. I'm not for having him in the game a lot. And I know a lot of people say the preseason games are meaningless, but they're not. They're basically practice. They are a leveled up version of practice. And I think you do need that, especially going in. I mean, look at I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the Bengals and how they start slow every single year. They don't play their starters much at all in the preseason. It sounds like they're changing that philosophy this year, so we'll see if that helps them. But I do feel like you've got to get on the ground and get rolling. One of the things during there was this last Hard Knocks episode, they were talking to Joe Andreessen, and he was talking to one of the other players or somebody, I can't remember exactly who. But anyways, he said it doesn't feel like there's a game. I know we have a game today, but it doesn't feel like it. They need to get past that, and I think they need to get into that routine. Like, there's a game today, we're ready.
Right.
And I'm not saying he wasn't ready, but just from the sounds of it, he's like, oh, it's time to play. We need to get beyond that and get ready to rock. I wanted to add one other thing really quick. I'm sorry, jumping back to the Cole Bishop thing that you mentioned. Does this not sound like kind of like the Terrell Bernard situation from a couple of years ago? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, who's going to be our linebacker? This guy's hurt. He didn't play anytime. And
Cross my fingers, it is.
Right. And he came out there and just was gangbusters. And we're like, whoa, this guy can play. Hoping for the same situation with Cole Bishop.
What I do know is that there's a lot of stuff about what Brandon Beane does and Sean McDermott, because I think that they're both excellent, like scouts / guys that can just see talent, right? I feel like you talk about Terrell Bernard, they saw something that we didn't.
Right.
Like, that just proves that that's why they get paid to do what they do and we don't, right? We get paid to talk about it. They get paid to go out there and make that stuff happen. And to your point, I am hoping that that's the same thing with Cole Bishop. Now, the only difference is he did get a lot more playing time his rookie year than Terrell Bernard did. We just saw Terrell Bernard in that one game against the Jets, and we were all like, oof. Like, hey. And then obviously the offseason we lost Tremaine Edmonds and all that stuff happened, and we're like, okay. And then Terrell Bernard, just blew up. Like, he was the cornerstone of the middle of the field for the Bills. So I hope that's why I crossed my fingers. I hope that this is another situation where the Bills absolutely nailed it on a draft pick and saw what a lot of us haven't seen yet, and they think it's there. A lot of that can be said about guys like Landon Jackson. Like, I've heard that he just looks extremely raw, but he also has shown some really great flashes of brilliance in practice, where he apparently today he looked really good against the Bears. So I don't know if it was going against third stringers or guys that are going to be bagging groceries next week. I don't know, but I think the Bills have a knack, and Brandon Beane and the scouting staff has a knack for finding those guys. Now, they miss on some too, but they have a knack for finding those guys like a Spencer Brown and a Dawson Knox that are just, obviously Josh Allen, that are just really raw, and they can see what they're going to be like a couple years down the road. And we just need, as fans, just need to be patient to just follow the journey and get there. Now, I've always said, on the flip side of that, I've always said, in a window that we have, whether you want to call it a window or a championship, caliber team that's contending for the AFC East and the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl, I don't like to build sculptures out of clay when we're in that window. I just don't. Like, I like to have surefire things, but we also have to remember that we are paying Josh Allen what we're paying Josh Allen. We're paying Greg Rousseau what we're paying Greg Rousseau. We're now paying James Cook. So we're going to have draft picks that are on rookie contracts that we're going to have to wait for them to develop and hope that they are just up to speed a lot sooner than, unfortunately, we want them to, and they'll get there. So, yeah, it's going to be fun Sunday. Hopefully we get to see some starters play. If I had to bet, and I don't know, I haven't been on X because we've been doing this, if McDermott's announced, if the starters are going to play, and if so, how long. I would say probably 2 drives, which would probably be the first quarter, depending on how those drives go. But it's going to be interesting to see. Again, I'm Dave Myers. If you guys haven't smashed the like button, smash the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel. As we get more and more into a routine of doing this, we will get more and more interaction in the chat. We'll get more and more viewers. Again, this is just the second episode. So Papa Ron's going to be here every Friday, locked in. He can't back out now. It's confirmed live here on Facebook, X, and YouTube. So before I head out, Ron, you got anything you want to share before we get out of here?
No, just excited about what's the future and this season, and looking forward to what you and I got going on and can build together here.
So if they want to follow you, where can they follow you on X? What's your handle over there on X?
Well, I go by Papa Ron, but as far as the Twitter handle, it's just my name, at Ronnie Eastham. You can check me out there. Post whatever, I comment, if you got questions, hit me up in the DMs. My DMs are always open for that kind of thing. Only that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm excited for the season, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited too. 2 days until preseason week 2. I will be back here on Monday, but I will be live tomorrow with a former member of Built in Buffalo, Peter DiBiase, for Billsology, because Akeem is on vacation this weekend. So I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Other than that, I'll see you on Monday. As always, go Bills.
Go Bills.